Well, hey, Stephen, how are you doing today?
I'm well, blessed, and glad to be here.
Well, good. Well, we're going to just dive right into the issue of sadness.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Yeah, I knew you'd have a terrible joke on the front end of that. But
there you go. I wish I had a good sad joke.
This may sound weird, but I'm actually excited to talk about this, which that may be like an oxymoron to be excited about talking about sadness. Mm-hmm. But the reason I think I'm looking forward to this conversation is because of what you've brought here. It's so relevant for men, but it's also one of those things that can often be so confusing or so scary for guys to really dive into, because I think even as soon as a guy even hears sadness, the word, it's like, I think two things happen. One, it's like, okay, I actually have experienced that, but I don't know what to do about it.
That's good.
Can you tell us what brought on this reason that you wanted to talk about sadness?
I don't know. I talk to a lot of guys, have a lot of fun. It's just fun to muck around in people's lives and poke around. Why do you do that? Why do you believe that? What drives you to do that? It's just fun. And I look for themes as I'm going along. And so I'm going to take a side trip here for a moment, because working with addicts in a group, I learned they don't know how to rest very well. They're busy, they're going, they're doing, they're distracting themselves and running away. They got a moment to rest, they run away to something. They're alone in a hotel room, they run away. They just don't know how to rest. So that's one big issue, that when you're working with addicts, you got to know that. And number two, they don't know how to do sadness very well. You could almost substitute those two. Oh no, you're sad. I don't want to. Oh, well, it's a big mess here. What are you sad about? And it's like, I got to go in there. It's scary in there. Your sadness.
Well, and it almost seems like, as you're saying that, I think, I know for me personally, I can move really quickly from sadness to anger.
Ooh.
Because as soon as you started saying, so why are you sad? I thought, I don't know, it's making me mad that I don't know why I'm sad, or I can't talk about it. I don't have the language for it sometimes,
Good.
So I think there is sort of this mix.
Good.
of all these emotions that are happening.
Explore with you anger.
Okay, yeah.
If we have time at the end, this would be a good discussion of sharing ourselves here. So I had this thought that if you wanted, everybody says you need to work on emotional growth and emotional development. It's like, okay, tell a guy, hey, work on emotional development. It's like hey,
he would know what that means, right? Yeah.
Hey, why don't you study the stars, okay? Just study the stars. It's easy. Just go study the stars. Emotional development. What the heck are you talking about? Where do you start? And everything emotional just floods up. What? You're telling me what's wrong with me? You say I have a weakness, I have a blind spot. What do you mean emotional? What do you want? What do you want? And so it's like, I think, what's the doorway, or what's the simplest thing? What's the starting place? And it's sadness. You want to work on emotional development? You want the greatest gain and the greatest impact? Work on sadness. Because remember, we don't practice rest, and we don't know sadness, right? What are you thinking?
Well, I have questions about that, for one thing. I
want to hear them.
Well, but I think one of the things you've taught me over the years sometime is to sit for a bit, to sit in things for a bit, and so I'm trying to kind of process that a little bit and think, okay, if the doorway to understanding your emotions is sadness, what might that indicate? Might it indicate that might be one of the most core human emotions that we feel? In other words, can you find a person on the planet that says, I've never experienced sadness? Because sadness has to do with loss or disappointment or, something that you couldn't understand.
And big, squishy, messy, sloppy things. Right? Disappointment and pain and struggle. So I might be oversimplifying this, but I'm a real simple guy, and things just have to make sense. If they don't make sense, then, I'm lost.
Right.
And why are you saying pull on the tail and instead of look at the head? And, why are we back here in the back part of why aren't we out front looking at this? And I think sadness is one of those get out front things. So it might be overly simple, and other people might say, no, you got to do 5 things. Okay, fine. This is me. This is my thoughts.
Well,
this program is a lot about what I think.
Well, and keep in mind, we're talking about, we're honing in on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've already established something about this one thing, is that it's not isolated from other emotions. It's like they're intertwined. But I think what I hear you saying is we're trying to focus on what is sadness and how do you deal with it, and how does it help us enter into a deeper understanding of ourselves, especially as men, because this is an area that we really don't understand.
Right, because we've overdeveloped part of ourselves, right? We're talking to a lot of people who have some addiction. I mean, almost everybody has some addiction.
Of some kind,
if
yeah.
you think about it. I was even thinking about this week. I like noise and entertainment. And so I'll just turn the TV on and I'll flip around to some old Western or this makes me hokey, but I even like, what are the Hallmark movies? The relationship, you know.
That's transparency there, Steve.
And then I was watching the football game last night, and I was watching the Sci-Fi Channel. When the game got slow, I flipped over to the storyline, you know, and then I flipped back. I don't know, maybe. But I like entertainment, and it's like you have to be careful. There's so much great entertainment. You could just lose yourself in entertainment. And you look up one day and it's like, is that a little compulsion? You're becoming a little addicted to noise all the time and entertainment all the time. So sadness is important because it confuses most men. And I'll just tell you something. Most men haven't done their own grief work.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They haven't gone into their own sadness. So every time you get sad, it invites me to go into sadness. But I don't go into sadness. Okay? So stop it. And we'll be just fine.
So would it be fair to say that then a lot of men are carrying just multiple layers of sadness that have never been resolved through grieving?
That's good.
And maybe could that be a reason, and I could be wrong here, but could that be a reason also that when any of that sadness gets poked, there could be an angry response. There could be a frustrated response, because it's like, I got thousands of layers of sadness here I've never grieved.
Well, but when you say angry, it could be a weakness too, right? That if you're not good at something, nobody wants their weakness paraded around, right? It becomes irritating. It's like, well, just put that down. Why you put that in my face, kind of thing, you know? So there's several reasons we might get angry, but your point is well said. All of our traumas and all of our sadnesses and all of our grieving, most of us haven't done our work.
Yeah.
There's, you know, I was talking to this guy and he said, well, I didn't know that all the sadness and the trauma shaped my life. The bad things that happened to me made me take a turn in my belief system and say terrible things to myself. But I didn't never grieve it. I've never been sad for me. Well, that means I haven't done my work. I don't know my story. I haven't gone back and looked at it. And a lot of guys go, I didn't know I was supposed to do that.
Right.
So sadness is sloppy. It's full of pain and disappointment. And when a woman cries, it's like a guy goes, oh, no, what is that sloppy? What am I supposed to do? I haven't done my work, and she wants me to be good with her and her work. No, I get irritated, right? And I get angry. I start to squirm. You see guys just fidgeting. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Tell me what to do. Yeah. No, I'm just feeling sadness. No, well, what do you want? Why are you telling me this? I'm lost. What do you think?
Amen. I have felt that more times than I can count, actually. And I think, one of the other things that I think you're touching on here is that we, as men, a lot of times, when, like you said, when we get confused about something, or when it's one of our weaknesses that we don't necessarily know how to develop, we are much more prone to just ignore it, deny it, hide it.
Yes.
Think about how much that actually then plays into one of the reasons that guys escape in porn, or they escape in some kind of sexual fantasy, is because in that, can't there be a regaining of a sense of, I know what to do here? I know I have control. I have a.
And comfort,
Does that make sense?
and
Yeah.
comfort, and getting away from,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what that's all about. Run away. Don't live well with yourself or in yourself or know yourself. Run away. That's what addicts do. They get a quiet moment. You want me to be with me?
Right.
Oh, no,
yeah.
no. I'm going to go over there to be entertained and distracted. I'm not going to do that. So a guy thinks, man, emotions are sloppy. They're crazy. They're unnecessary, right? This sadness stuff. Why do you even want to do it? Why don't we just talk about fun and play and laughter and pleasure, all the fun things? Let's just talk about those things today. Why do we have to talk about disappointment and sadness?
And so why do we have to talk about that? Because I think, I don't think there is probably anybody listening that says, I don't know what you're talking about sadness. I don't know. I mean, I think everybody has felt that emotion. But the reason they're listening is I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to talk about that. I don't know how to respond when my wife says, how are you feeling? And it's sadness. And if I say the word, I don't know what to say after that.
Ooh, that's
in other words,
good.
if I actually respond honestly and say, I'm feeling sad, and she says, well, tell me about it. That's all I know. A lot of guys stop there
this
because...
is good. Let's go with that because wouldn't you say you're sad if you back it up, it's because there's been a disappointment?
some kind of loss.
A loss. So we could either that. That's the question. What's the loss or what's the disappointment?
Mm-hmm.
Because something didn't happen. We're sad. When things go well, we're happy. And when they don't go well, we're sick. Somebody let us down. We're disappointed. We're not appreciated at work. We did this great thing and nobody noticed. Where's the disappointment?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so sadness is a way to work through our disappointments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I want to pause on that for just a second because I think what you just said, it's easy to sort of just fly over.
Okay.
But I think it can be extremely liberating for a lot of men who are listening right now.
Okay.
Sadness is the way that we work through our disappointments. How much of a better framework is that for understanding sadness than us saying what we normally say, which is, I'm sad and I don't know what to do about it.
Oh, good.
You're framing it in a way that says, you know what? It's a valid emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually has a purpose.
Good.
Think about how much, as men, we love that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something has to have meaning. We got to understand it. We got to say, is this a, think of it this way. We often talk in our ministry about helping guys get, more tools in their tool belt, right?
Right.
Well, what if we said sadness is a tool? Is that
Yes.
fair to say
Yes,
that we could frame it that
absolutely.
way?
Absolutely.
So maybe we don't have to be as afraid of the emotion of sadness if we realize, oh, you know what, this is a mechanism that God has placed in my being that can actually help me move to another place, to help me move through disappointment.
Good. So then I would back up disappointments and I would say, okay, tell me 5 disappointments. Because am I going to know the exact one?
Right.
Like I got this conversation all in my head. Let me just roll it out. No. So then if it's sadness and disappointments, what are they?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so what comes to mind? If you had to come up with 5 disappointments, either you or your wife, just things you've heard, you go wherever you want to go with that.
Oh my goodness. So there could be so many. I think the first thing that I go to is just family.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And man, being a parent, not disappointment in my kids, but maybe disappointment that an opportunity they had didn't come through,
Right.
or
So you agree
I'm
with
sad
them.
for them, or
That's good.
man, they tried out for this, or they wanted to do that and they didn't make it, or I feel sadness in that. So that's a disappointment.
Good. So I'll do one, then you do one, then I'll do one. So my back has been bothering me lately, and it's like, what the heck? Am I getting old or something? Why that sharp pain there? And it's like, that's a disappointment. That's a frustration. That's a sadness that my body is changing, and something that didn't happen before is happening now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Finances. oh man, we were hoping to be able to get such and such and it didn't work out, and I'm disappointed because we just didn't have the money to do it.
That's it.
I'd love to be able to do X, Y, or Z, and it costs such and such and we can't do it. There's a disappointment.
So mine is, I took my car in Monday morning to get a little gasket replaced on a timing chain pan that was leaking. On Thursday at 5:45, they called me and said, "Oh, the gasket finally came in. We'll get your car to you on Friday afternoon." It's like, what?
Yeah.
Can't you move me up? What? And they said, no, short supply, blah, blah. It's like, So we all carry these disappointments in us. And if we can express them, when you tuck something out, half of the power of it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say it, then I have clarity about what it is. And then it helps free me and lighten me up. And what we don't realize is that is what our wives are doing. They're venting off their disappointment.
Yeah.
But here's what happens when a guy hears a wife go into disappointment. He starts to get scared because he goes, oh no, she's disappointed. What's his first thought?
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? What did I miss? How did I mess up? That disappointment's about me. It's coming at me sooner or later, right? And remember, she's cleaning herself off by throwing out her disappointments, right? And he is taking them in the gut on the other side going, was it me? Was it me? Was it me? So here's a little insight for a woman. If you want to vent a lot of disappointment, say, first, this isn't about you, but could you just let me talk a minute and vent these things out? Then I get right out of the crosshairs, and I can sit in the bleachers, and I could let you vent out your stuff.
Right, yeah.
Well, you say something.
No, I love that. I love the idea of being, I love that qualification. So I think you just gave a great tip for being able to not short circuit that process of talking that out. Yeah. Because a lot of times what happens is as soon as that guy thinks, what did I do wrong? Guess what? We're not in a dialogue anymore because now both of us are in our kind of self-focused camps instead of going, okay, if either one of us, let's say, has something that we need to get off of our chest, maybe that's a great little qualifier of saying, listen, I've got some things that I need to share. I'm not looking for a solution, but I need to just talk it out.
Yeah. And it's not about you.
It's not about you, yeah.
Then I can just park and I can be useful.
Now you've listed on here, and I'd love for us to go through this.
Yeah.
Some of these kind of unspoken training instructions that are about sadness that have maybe shaped some of these unhealthy ways for guys to think about sadness. Maybe we got the cart before the horse.
No, are we talking about?
We're talking about this here. These.
Down there. No. Okay, let me jump. I got to make another point here. Okay.
Okay.
So then the question becomes: look, we model our fathers, right? We walk with them and follow them around, and they train us. And if your dad never talked about disappointment, sadness, grief, and loss, there's a rule. It goes like this. Whatever your dad talks about, it's okay to talk about. But if your dad never talks about it, please don't ask him about it. He doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Now, does that make sense?
It makes sense. And you know where my mind immediately went to?
Yeah.
Think about all that God has talked about with us in his word.
Keep going.
So that idea is like, hey, if dad talks about it, it's okay to talk about it.
Right.
Hey, you know what? It's okay to talk about sex. It's okay to talk about sin. It's okay to talk about our brokenness. It's okay to talk about repentance. It's okay to talk about.
Right.
I mean, think about all that God has talked with us about.
Yeah.
And he's saying, hey, it's okay to talk about that. And yet think about, like you said, our human fathers. And I think every single one of us probably fairly quickly could make two lists on a page. One saying, these were the things that dad talked about. And then the other one is, these are the things dad didn't talk about. And I think immediately what you just said would come to light with any one of us. We'd say everything that's in the column that said, this is what dad didn't talk about. I bet every single one of us would say, yeah, I struggle to talk about those things.
Sex.
Yeah.
My dad never talked to me about sex. Yeah. Right? We don't talk about it. I don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. Got it? Sadness and disappointments and griefs. We don't slow down. Cut the grass. Paint the fence.
Yeah.
Put some oil on that door that's squeaking over there. Sweep the driveway. You know, let's do stuff.
And that's where some of these unspoken training instructions, I think, came from too. Is
That's
like
exactly.
Dad talks about some things, but the things that were omitted, I think we forget that even the things that were omitted are training us.
Yes. Well, and there was this thought that came to me was when a little girl falls down and cries, it's like, oh, we're so sorry. And
Oh yeah.
and you know, let me comfort you. And you know, it's she's a girl and she's expressing her emotions. Oh, and that's okay. But if a guy falls down, it's like, suck it up.
Yeah.
Suck it
Stop
up,
crying.
buttercup. Get going.
Yeah.
Pull up your boots. What are you talking about? No pain, no gain. Right? The language is completely different. So even in that, we're trained. Stuff all the emotional stuff. You're sad. We don't want to hear about it. You're in pain. We don't want to hear about it. Right? Now remember the rule of addiction, the rule of dysfunctional families. Don't talk. Don't think.
Right.
Don't feel. Don't act. Don't tell me what's going on. Because I don't want to hear your problems. I got plenty of my own. So that's sort of where we came from.
So this first kind of training that you've mentioned here was it's okay to be happy, but it's not okay to be sad, hurt, or disappointed. So there's this idea of like, again, certain emotions. Oh, totally. We're going to celebrate those. We're going to affirm those in you. And the thing is, I mean, I would be curious if we did a poll of all of our male listeners, if they were ever told as a child, as a boy, it's okay to be sad.
Wow.
I wonder what the results would be in terms of the numbers of guys.
My dad never said it, and I had 4 uncles. Not one of them ever told me that. No pastor ever told me that. Most of the men would never say that. Had never said that to me.
And then it's no wonder we don't know how to deal with our sadness.
Yeah.
Because we're going to stuff it. Because it's like if I believe it's not okay to be sad and I feel sad, I don't want to be not okay.
Well, and the second point here on this list is Dad gave us language for work and play and chores and doing, but he gave us no language for grieving and disappointment and sadness. Look, we need language because do you hear yourself a minute ago? I'm sad. I mean, I'm mad. I'm sad. I'm mad. I mean, think about how sophisticated that language is, right? And I said, hey, disappointment. You go, oh, wow, that's a word I could use in a sentence. What's the disappointment here now? The language is being created, right? That we can go into the sadness, right? So, but if Dad didn't use that language, you think we learned it? Mm-hmm. No, we didn't hear it. We used the language that we heard growing up at home.
And the thing is, I think this is another thing that comes into my mind about this is we have also, even in the church, even in the way we think about family, is we have relegated certain roles for fathers and certain roles for mothers. You know, I've never heard it explicitly said, even though I think it's absolutely scriptural, that fathers are also supposed to be emotional trainers of their children.
Right. Absolutely.
And we've sort of abdicated that and said it's well, that's all mother language. That's all the emotional stuff. That's mom's. But I think about how in Deuteronomy, when God talks about how he brought his people out of Egypt, and he said, I carried you like a father carries a son. He was using very intimate, tender language of saying, hey, I carried you like a dad is supposed to carry his son, close to him, protecting, rescuing him. That's emotional language.
And the whole idea, he was talking to the country of Israel, and he said, how I've longed to gather you like a mother gathers her chicks together. Just be safe with me. I'll protect you. I long to be that, he said. So some of these points are reviewing. So it's okay to be happy, but we don't want to hear about the pain and disappointment. 1, you got to have language. And then number 3, if Dad says it, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm back this out from a church thought. If a leader talks about a topic then it's okay for the congregation to talk.
Yeah.
But if a leader doesn't talk about it, if a leader never talks about sexual stuff, the people in the church won't talk about sexual stuff.
And here I would even take it one step further. The way a father or a leader talks about this stuff. Because again, dads may talk about sadness to their kids, but guess what? It's like, hey, get up, don't cry,
Right.
don't be sad.
Yes.
He's talking about sadness, but not in a healthy way.
Right.
So the same way a leader, how they talk about a certain subject. If a leader comes out and talks about sex and all it is like hellfire, brimstone, and punishment, and all, guess what? You're not going to feel safe
Right.
to talk about sex. So
Right.
so I think it's both if they talk about it and also how they talk about it that makes a difference.
Yep. So, so if a girl falls down, she gets comforted.
Yeah.
But if a boy cries, a dad might say, "Hey, well, go see your mother. Go to your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. I'm not going to mess with you crying. Go to your mother." Or he might say, "Don't be a sissy. Come on, man up. We don't do that."
Well, and then also the next one is talking about that anger is strength.
Okay.
You know, think about that. Most men have really been trained to think anger's fine to express. I mean, that's a manly emotion. And yet sadness is seen as weakness.
Yes. Yes.
Like it's not okay because it's weak. But I like to remind people, Jesus wept.
Yes.
He didn't just shed a single tear. He broke down and wept with the people who had lost their brother and relative Lazarus. So
good. And if you don't know what else to do and you get confused about being, lost in sadness or disappointment, the tendency is just fix something. Find something they're complaining about. Fix something, then move the conversation along. You know what I tend to do, and one of the things that always is sometimes a concern in the back of my mind about having done this podcast for so many years is when I share something transparently, I'm always afraid of like people thinking, God, has this guy grown at all? Like, is he matured at all? Has he matured at all? Like, he still sounds like he has a lot of struggles in his life, but and hopefully there's a reality there that it's like it's ongoing. And it's hard. Life, it's like hard. I've never done this before. I'm doing the best I can.
But you know what one of my reactions to sadness is in terms of this point of like do something. I'll go water the plants.
Oh, there you go.
I go outside because I'm like I may be confused. It's like I don't know how to talk about this. I haven't pinpointed the disappointment or whatever.
Good.
So for me, kind of getting out in nature, getting outside sort of helps slow my thoughts.
Right.
But sometimes it's just I don't want to deal with it if I'm honest. So go water the plants.
That's good. But I hope when you're out there you're saying, okay, this is one of those stressful things. I'm short on language, but I can grow.
Oh, I'm having an inner dialogue for sure.
Good. But then I think you also should say, okay, what are my disappointments? Because I think other people trigger failure in us.
Absolutely,
anybody disappointed and has pain, it's like, I want to show up and I want people to be happy that I'm there.
Yeah.
Right? But when they're not happy and they're telling me what's wrong and how bad this is and the weather's bad, the traffic's bad, the dog's bad, the kids are bad, the house is bad. It's like, hey, why are we going to have this conversation? Because all of a sudden I'm feeling bad. Mm-hmm. So sometimes their disappointments can weigh on us. Right?
And I think this shows, again, we've done some other podcasts on core fear. Right?
Yes.
It shows how closely these can be tied, right?
Yes.
Because I can have a disappointment that makes me sad, but it might also at the same time be triggering that core fear that says I'm not enough.
That's right. Exactly. You got it. But if you stay in the disappointment mindset and say, okay, what are my disappointments right now? And what is she telling me her disappointments are? And if I go back and repeat her disappointments to her, then I'm in her sadness with her and she will thank me. Mm-hmm. Right? So finally, the old rule is just keep everything inside. And we're learning today that's never been helpful. It's still not going to be helpful. You're going to have sadnesses. And if you just keep it all inside, you're just going to cork it up and then anger's coming out.
Yeah.
Detachment's coming out. Well, you're not perfect either is coming. All the bad stuff's coming out. So I want to sort of wrap on that. How would you wrap up things?
Yeah, I liked what you said about going back to sort of complete the conversation and enter into another person's sadness. I think that's something that often gets lost in this conversation, because what do men typically do with anything in our lives, especially emotional things that we don't know what to do? We isolate ourselves, right? So I would end on that. I think it's really important that we remember sadness is a valid, good emotion. It's actually a tool that can help us to handle our disappointments. Absolutely. But hopefully what we will learn from that is to enter into relationship to work through our sadness rather than isolate ourselves and just stay sad or get worse or get depressed.
Yeah, pray and ask God for wisdom, because I think this is really important. Work on rest and work on sadness.
Yeah.
A funky way to end, but hey, work on your sadness.
Work on your sadness.
Yay.
Well, and we're here to help you, listeners. So if we've only scratched the surface here. There's a lot more that we could talk about in terms of dealing with sadness. If you'd like to have us walk alongside with you in this and need more help in terms of navigating your sadness, please reach out to us. And we look forward to seeing you back here again next time on the Pure Sex Radio program. Take care.
God bless.